And the environment. Yeah.
You used to say if you can't change the world around you, you got to change the world you live in. Doesn't mean you have to move. You got to change where you live up there.
Exactly, because you live there. That's exactly right. So he says there's three different things that can happen. Number one, you can change yourself, but not your environment. Growth will be slow and difficult. Now, can you? Yes. It will be harder. Here's the analogy I use all the time. I say this probably once a week. When I walk out my front door and I decide I've got a 3-mile course that I want to run, and I run the same course every day, and I want to run an 8-minute, 30-second mile, whatever number I pick. And that day I walk out of the door and the wind is blowing in my face. Now, can I run the pace that I want to run for that 3 miles? Absolutely. How hard will I have to work to run it? About, who knows, depends on how hard, but I mean, we've been on runs before, you feel like you're working 3 times as hard, right? Now, the next day, I can walk out of that same front door onto that same course and want to run the same time, and I can have the wind behind me. Now, can I run the same pace? How much easier will it be? That's the difference between changing yourself and changing your environment at the same time. You can do whatever you want to do wherever you want to do it, but if you don't change the environment as well, it's going to be a whole lot harder. Does that make sense? Number 2, he says you can change your environment, but not yourself. Again, grow will be slow and difficult. If I've got the wind blowing at my back and I'm on a run, but I'm walking, I'm not going to get anywhere. So if I'm changing myself, I'm not going to hit my goal. He says number 3, here's the perfect world. Change your environment and yourself. Your growth will be faster and more successful. It's difficult to do. He says, but here's what a great environment looks like. And what Maxwell did was he sat down. Now, do you understand that the growth plan, has everybody in here heard of writing a growth plan? Those of you who haven't, a growth plan is not a business plan. Someone define for me, Linwood, what's a growth plan? I'm picking on you. Huh?
I guess I would think that it was the same as a business plan, but on personal, what you want to do as a person, life goals, achievements.
Perfect. How are you going to grow as a person? Business plan is the numbers of your business, right? A personal growth plan is I'm going to read this book, I'm going to attend this conference, I'm going to go to this, whatever it is, I'm going to eat right, it doesn't matter, but it's about your personal growth. So Maxwell was the one who really became a proponent of leaders writing growth plans. He also wrote about a growth environment, and here's what his was. He wrote this in 1973. He says he still keeps it. A growth environment is where others are ahead of me, where I am continually challenged, where my focus is forward, the atmosphere is affirming, when I am often out of my comfort zone, when I wake up excited, failure is not my enemy, others around me are growing, people are desiring change, growth is modeled and expected. Sounds like a pretty cool place to be, doesn't it?
Sounds like fun.
Well, thank you. I like that.
Well, were we recently named what top crime places to work?
Nationally, yep. So he tells the story of a conversation he had that kind of describes how you reflect your environment, how you become your environment. And this is what he says. He was talking with Elmer Towns, who's a famous author, and he said, Elmer said, do you know how to get a fire poker, hot? And Maxwell said, oh, I can put it next to the fire. He went on to explain that we're like the metal in that poker. If our environment is cold, we are cold. If it's hot, we are hot. You will become what is around you. It's just a fact. So then number 3 talks about, so first of all, assess yourself. Then number 2, change yourself and your environment. Number 3, and I think, Nani, you nailed this, change who you spend time with. I'm going to stop here on this one for a little bit. He tells the story, and as I was reading the story, it just it spoke to me personally, because this is what I want in my own life and in my home. He says his parents never had a lot of money, but they created the kind of home environment where all of his friends were, right? Everybody who has teenagers know you want your house to be the one they all come to. Why? You know what's going on. You know who those kids are, right? They made he said, my dad made a basketball court, he poured a concrete pad, he put up a hoop, he made a basement, a kid's paradise, they put in a pool table, a ping pong set, a chemistry set, I tried to picture my kids coming over again. It worked for him. I'm not gonna lie, they wouldn't touch it. We had a few reasons to hang out anywhere but, we had few reasons to hang out anywhere but home, and our friends had every reason to come over. I just used food. I bribed them with food. He says, here's what my parents knew. My mother was always around. She was getting to know all the kids. She influenced all the kids she could. And she warned us about the behavior of those who might lead us into trouble. She and my dad understood that birds of a feather flock together. And their efforts paid off. Kids flowed to our house. Even today, more than 5 decades later, I run into these guys and we were called the basement. And they talk about our basement canteen where we hung out. So basically, let's get into the science of it. The people you habitually associate with are called your reference group. These are the people who will determine, I want you to hear this, they will determine 95% of your success in life. There's a proverb that he mentions, walk the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. You are the same today that you're going to be in 5 years from now, except for 2 things. The people with whom you associate and the books you read. Jim Rome says that we become the average, the combined average of the 5 people we hang around with the most. Clinton Peterson, if you ever talk to him about this, he always says, I want to be the brokest of my 6 friends. I want my 5 friends to be all ahead of me. Rome says that you can determine the quality of health, attitude, and income just by looking at who people hang around with. What's funny is we teach this to our kids, right? We teach it religiously to our kids. Who do you associate? Who are your friends? We teach them about friend choices, and then somewhere in our mind, we turn it off for ourselves. Like we hit an age of adulthood where we stop holding ourselves to the same standard.
You hit a point where you think you're insulated against it, and it's no longer important for you because you have achieved who you are.
It's not going to influence me.
Right.
And it may not. It may not drag you down, but is it going to pull you forward? No. Absolutely. This is, and I've never heard this. This is a great story. So Sue Enquist, I won't read all her qualifications. Leave it to say she was one of the top 5 winningest softball coaches in collegiate history at UCLA. Enquist has espoused the 33% rule. She says you can divide people in school, on your team, at work, or anywhere else into the bottom, the middle, and the top thirds, and they always have the same characteristics. The bottom third suck the life out of you because nothing is ever good enough for them. They take your energy and your motivation out of the environment. I see all you nod your heads because everybody knows the bottom third, right? The middle third are happy and positive when things are going well, but down in times of adversity. Circumstances dictate and control their attitude. The top third maintains a positive attitude even in tough times. These are your leaders. These are your influencers. These are the game changers. Those are the kind of people we should try to be, and those are the kind of people we spend time with. Does that make sense? Yes. So where do you want your associate, your reference group, what do you want it to be? The top third, right? Because you know, the day that you have a bad day, and let's just be real, we all have them. I mean, that's the truth. There's no doubt about it. I told Allison this morning, 2 of my children are lucky to be alive today. They walked out the door. It did not start off great. You know, things happen. Life shows up. Does that mean I'm a failure? No. Had a rough morning, trying to kick people, drag people out of bed. It is what it is. I want to know, though, when I walk into my office on those days, that the people that I associate with are going to help me. They're going to help me move forward. Not go, oh, you had a bad day? You know what? I did too. I am so mad at my husband, and just commiserate. And the next thing you know, you're both in wallow land.
When we were on the salespeople in the car lot, we used to teach them that come with a great attitude, and then the first thing you do, you go out on the lot, you're waiting for an up, you're trying to talk to, you're positive, all of a sudden a guy comes in from the weekend, starts talking about his weekend, how bad it was or great it was, he distraction, and another guy comes, just got in trouble for the manager for doing something, he starts being negative, talking about how bad his day was, another guy comes in talking about his life, how bad it was, all of a sudden you've gone from one positive guy to 5 people sitting around sharing negative information, and that one positive guy has now let himself become deflated.
Yeah, totally.
Completely.
Exactly. You become who is around you. So we need larger people in our life. We need people with integrity. We need people who are positive. People who are ahead of us professionally. people who lift us up instead of knocking us down, who take the high road, but most importantly, people that are growing. So I think that's something with this whole assessment. We look around ourselves and we go, okay, who are the 5 people right around me?
An interesting thing too is if you identify people that are growing, they might not have to be above you. It might not matter where their level is because their focus is in the place you want your focus.
Absolutely. You can be around a growth person that maybe doesn't have the same volume or, you know, units closed, and we're just using the real estate. But you know what? They can be really nailing it physically or health-wise, you know, in all different categories, right? Or
Or they can
financially.
be their goals. I mean, if you have somebody that's in your environment that's consistently showing you how they're getting to their next step, it doesn't matter where your
Yeah,
if
on
your
the
next
journey,
steps
right.
are the same.
Correct. But clearly they got something to get them from one step to the next step. Is that focus? Yes. To one thing. That's not, by the way, that's now the new answer to everything. If you're ever in a class and somebody asks a question, just say the one thing and it'll be right. So, that's your.
Lead generation.
Yeah, just lead generation. That's not taken over by the one thing. Number 4, challenge yourself in your new environment. So, you decide to change your environment and you say, okay, I'm gonna get in a different environment. Here's how we challenge ourselves. He says one of the things you can do to challenge yourself is to make your goals public. It's one of the reasons why when I move a realtor over here, one of the first things I ask them is, okay, what are your goals? Because they have to speak them out loud. There's accountability, right? And there's ownership. There's all kinds of things. You know, that doesn't mean you have to stand up at the sales meeting and tell everybody this is what I'm going to do. But when we make our goals public to someone or a few someones, there's a definite level of accountability. The things that push us are the deadlines and an audience. You know, he says, and I love that he says this didn't mean that I always reached my goals. Get this. But I found that if I told others about what I intended to do, I worked harder, and I worked in such a way that I would not be ashamed of my efforts, even if everyone was watching them. Isn't that powerful? It wasn't necessarily that he hit the number. It was that he worked in such a way that he said, man, I left it all on the field. I may have not hit that goal. I did everything I could do because I was pushed. Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't come to the ALC meetings. They're really, if you make a point, come to them. And I know that sounds self-serving because I'm on the ALC. I didn't understand the gift that it was. When you're sitting around listening to these people who truly are doing huge volumes, I mean, monster volumes, and they're saying, yeah, I didn't hit my goal, but this is what I did. And we're accountable to each other because we all have to say our goals, and then we have to say where we're at with our goals every single meeting. And when you're coming and you're going, oh God, I just really didn't.
That's when I'm dodging.
Just like, you know, I mean, and you're not feeling like you're a rock star, and you say it, and then you realize, oh my God, you know, and to pick on, because I know she won't care, to pick on Dar Walden, she's like, yeah, this month, you know, I really had a couple of steps on it. There's the accountability. You work harder, you support each other. You know, there's just, it's a whole different field. You know, so it's so important.
I totally agree. Make it public. The next thing he talks about, and boy, the timing on this, and honestly, this is why I chose this law, because the timing is perfect. He says, I look for one major growth opportunity every week, I follow through from it, and I learn from it. Okay, there's a good chunk of you in this room that are fixing to get on a plane and go to Dallas for a week. He says, whether it's at a meeting with friends, at a lunch with a mentor, a conference I'm attending, or speaking event, where I might get time with high-profile leaders, I always prepare the same way. I ask 5 questions before my learning time. I ask, what are their strengths? This way I'll learn the most. What are they learning right now? This is when I can catch their passion. What do I need right now? This helps me apply what I learned to my situation. Who have they met? What have they read? Or what have they done that has helped him? You understand that's repeatable action. Right? If I'm sitting in a conversation with someone and I say, man, I just read this book, it was really fantastic, you can go read that book. And we just did this, right? Katrina and Linwood. I had a conversation with you guys about, and many of you have watched it, the 4 Disciplines of Execution video. That was something I did. It has had massive impact on my business. I was able to say, here, you guys go watch it. It's totally repeatable. And then they can watch it and see how it impacts them. So that's something you can get from someone. What haven't I asked that I should have? So I'm telling you, get these 5 questions down before you get down there, because you can be standing, you've heard me say it 100 times, I know. You can be standing in line with somebody and find out you're standing next to a $35 million producer that you want to learn from, and if you're not prepared, you've lost the moment. And a potential game changer conversation. I've told you, I don't know how many times, I had a 2-minute conversation in a hallway in Anaheim at Family Reunion that absolutely changed the way I handled a major situation that showed up unexpectedly 3 weeks later. But if I hadn't been in a place to ask the right questions, I don't know that I would have gotten the input, the insight from this successful team leader that I needed. Clinton Peterson, I just picked on him already. This is something he's a master at. He sets up interviews with top agents all the time in the company, calls them, says, I want 30 minutes of your time. And he will call, and I know this because he's called me and said, I'm meeting with Kristen Cole. I have 30 minutes. Here's my list of questions I want to ask her. What am I forgetting? He prepares. He doesn't just go sit and have coffee. He says, all right, I've got this time. This is what I need. This is what I want to learn. That's growth minded. So for those of you going to Family Reunion, if you don't have the book and want the questions, come up to my office, steal it off my desk, and make a copy of it.
Yeah. What page is that on?
94. On your e-reader, that's page
I was gonna say, now I have to go look at it.
Crap, scroll. Okay, number 5, focus on the moment. What does that mean? Focus on the moment. What that means is you absolutely have the power to change everything now. What do we tend to do? I'll start that diet on Monday, right?
We either worry about the past or worry about the future.
We always say, I'm gonna start, I'm gonna. In my home, those words are not allowed. I don't wanna, I wanna know what you did today.
Because favorite part about the one, what is the thing you can do right now that will make it
Correct.
easier?
Correct. You have the power to do that. Today is where everything that's going to happen from now on begins. And if you don't do it today, then you're waiting another day to tomorrow, which we all know what that looks like. That's really 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months down the road. Never. You know, I was at a funeral yesterday. Donna Smith, for those of you who know her, her husband passed away. She told us on Friday. I think it was Friday. And so she had the funeral, so I went to her funeral, and of course whenever you're there at a funeral, you stop and you take stock of your life. And I was just thinking, gosh, flash forward to the time when it's the end of my life, will there be anything that I said I wish I would have? I wish I would have started. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have. I always wanted to, but I never did. Right? Don't let everything starts right now.
One thing he says in that book, or at least he does on the audiobook, is he says, if you wait until you're ready, it's too late. And I love that saying, because sometimes, you know, when you have that apprehension and you're going, God, I just want to take that next step and I don't, but I'm not ready for it, and I'm not ready for it. And the thing is that if you were ready for it, you would have already done it, so then it's already too late. So, you know, because now you're like 8 steps behind where you should be. So, it's, you know, you are going to have that, don't be afraid of that, you know. Realize that if you're kind of feeling like, then you're probably in the right place.
Yeah,
You know?
it's the indicator. If it's scary, that means it's probably right.
Yeah.
Because when we're uncomfortable, that's when we've got to make the decision, or that's when the decisions happen. He says, I read that former movie star Shirley Temple Black learned about the power of living in the moment from her mother-in-law. Evidently, when her husband Charles was a boy, he would ask his mother, what was the happiest moment of your life? Her response was, this moment right now. He said, but what about all the other happy moments in your life? What about when you were married? She laughed and said, my happiest moment then was then. My happiest moment now is now. You can really only live in the moment you're in. So to me, that's always the happiest moment. What's past is past. Future you can't control, so work on today. Mother Teresa observed, yesterday is gone, tomorrow has not yet come, we have only today, let us begin. So if you need to make changes in yourself and your environment, don't dwell on your past, right? This is what, I love my coach, everything is alliterated, so it's easy to remember. If you're stuck in the past, you're stuck on something that happened 3 weeks ago, here's your questions. Did I cause it? Can I control it? Can I cure it? If it's in the past, the event's over, so the answer to all of them is no. Move on. Worry about today, worry about right now. Don't get stuck there, just go with where you're at. Nothing frustrates me more in coaching sessions than when someone says they're going to be stuck back here. Because I want to say, why are we here? We're spinning our wheels. There's not a darn thing we can do about it. It's done. Notice that, I mean, that's where the 5-minute funeral comes from, right? Every 5-minute funeral, get over it, move forward. Number 6, move forward despite criticism. I loved when I got to this piece. Anybody in this room, I'm sorry, does anybody in this room have a lot of I in their personality?
Not me.
There's a lot of, not everybody, but there's a lot of you that have a ton of I in your personality. You want to be liked, you love people, you love being around people, you love their affirmation. People, right? It is very hard for those of us with high I's to accept criticism. And whenever we hear it, maybe this is just me talking, but whenever we hear it, what do we do? Someone criticizes you. Jacob, you've got a big farming campaign you're working on right now. We were just talking about it. You came in my office and you said, here's a script, I'd love your input on this. What if I looked at you and said, this is really good, but why is it exactly that you're doing this? What's the goal? How would you have felt right there at that moment?
Stupid.
Yeah, right? Would I have been an idiot to say that? Yes. You've got a
Depends how
great
bad my
kid.
script was.
Here's my point. Just because someone says it doesn't mean it has any validity. But our people personality, we give it validity. We've had this conversation. Again, I'm picking on you. So we've had this conversation. So-and-so said this. Do you think that's true? I need a gut check. You were smart enough to say, just because he said it doesn't mean it has to be true. So I'm going to go to someone who knows me really, really well, and I'm going to gut check myself before I take any emotion or action or anything on this. Right? But that's what we do. As soon as someone criticizes us, we're like, should I consider it? Here's my point. When you make change, you will be criticized, period. Done. It happens. Accept it. Get over it. Don't ever think about it again. I'm not saying don't seek wise counsel. Now, Jacob came to me with this farming thing because you trust my opinion. He came to Allison, asked her opinion, right? You said, what do you think? Because you trust her judgment. Both of us made a couple suggestions, said maybe this word or what, maybe it was minor, like really minor. We're tracking this little project he's doing because I think this is going to be pretty cool. But you came and got wise counsel, right? You weren't just shot at. So get input, but understand that people will criticize you when you're doing big things. Growth always comes from taking action, and taking action will always bring criticism. To reach your potential, you must not only do what others believe you cannot do, but what even you believe you can't do. The thing is someone's opinion does not have to become your reality. He gives a quote. He says, when you take charge of your life, there is no longer need to ask permission of other people or society at large. When you ask permission, you give someone veto power over your own life. Before making a major change, seek wise counsel if you can. Then make your own decisions, and understand you're accountable for them as well. But just be prepared. When you start doing big stuff, you're going to get shot at. And if you're getting shot at, that usually means you're doing big stuff.
What you said there makes a seek wise counsel. So often we seek people to either give us the answer we want to hear, or we'll ask the person who's going to absolutely shoot it down, no matter what, because they're not wise counsel in that. So we need to find somebody who will offer us an opinion which we respect and which we value, but will also, take the opportunity to give us the right answer.
So you just circled right back to the people who, right? Which is exactly right. That's why this is all connected. Because those 5 people around you that you've chosen wisely, they're going to do exactly what Lane just said. The good part. They're going to give you wise, insightful, honest counsel. Yes?
I like the part you just said about it seems impossible at first. And when I think about it, all the really meaningful things I've ever done, when I first thought about it, I knew it was impossible. There was no way I could ever do it.
house, Habitat House.
All kinds.
I mean, that's
You know,
scary, right?
Run a marathon, you know,
Triathlon
triathlon,
after a knee surgery?
broker of a company with, I don't know, 250 people in it. and-
We only had 5 when you started.
I know, you guys tricked me. But
Seriously.
it's true, and I think it's the same with everybody. I hear people say, oh, I could never sell 20 million. I could never sell 10 million. You know, and it just starts with mindset. So when something feels like that at first, you know, maybe that means it's a really good goal.
Yeah, it should scare you a lot.
I
So,
think it does scare it every day we play something.
I know, I'm scared. But do you get my point? So learn to get a little bit of thick skin, you know? Be teachable, be coachable, be willing to accept criticism from people you really respect that have a proven track record. Because that's what's really interesting. Have you ever noticed that the people that criticize your success are often people with no track record of success behind them? So in my mind, if I look back at their track record and I don't see success, that's it. I'm not listening to anything because what have they done to warrant their opinion? Now, if I see somebody that's really smart and proven and successful and they've done multiple things right over time and they say, oh boy, I think maybe you might be missing the mark there, I'm going to give it some weight. But just understand, if you're getting shot at, it means you're definitely doing something right. Okay, in closing, he stops here for this one and he talks to leaders. And I wasn't going to go into this, and then I thought, no, wait a minute. If I preach to you guys to study leadership because you're leaders, then we need to talk about this. Whether you're a team leader, or whether you're a single agent running your own business, or whether you're running the admin anywhere, it doesn't matter. This is important. Here's what he said. As the leader of my organization, I recognized I was responsible for the environment. So let's take it another step. It's not just where you position yourself for your personal growth. Understand that you are responsible for creating the environment. We talk about this in our staff meetings not all the time, but we talk about it amongst each other. The environment doesn't just show up. Anything left to itself over time will deteriorate, right? If we didn't work hard to create a culture of growth and environment, I guarantee you it would turn into a culture of negativity and drama and backbiting and blah, 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 yuckiness. You are responsible for creating your own environment. So here's what he said. Remember I talked about Maxwell had the growth plan, then he had the growth environment? Well, he also wrote a list of what he would create. He said, I strove to create a place where, and it's really just a play on those same points, others are ahead of them, they are continually challenged, their focus is forward, the atmosphere is affirming, they are often out of their comfort zone, they wake up excited, failure is not their enemy, others are growing, people desire change, growth is modeled and expected. So get that you are absolutely in control of making that happen around you. And I would tell you, and it goes back to another Maxwell book, The 360-Degree Leader. My son and I just had this conversation the other night. You may say, well, I don't run a team. I don't have 11 buyer's agents and 15 listing specialists. I don't even have an executive admin. I am an admin. I'm not that person that you're talking about, Jen. My son and I were talking about this because he's 6th, 7th man coming off the bench in basketball. Now that's kind of a tough spot for him because in football he's a starter, right? So it's a different situation. And we were talking about leadership the other day and Saturday morning early practices and what it should look like to show up early. And he said, man, Mom, Saturday morning, I didn't be there at 7, I gotta be there at 8. I'll be there at 8. I'm like, be there at 7:50. I don't know why. I said, because you're a leader. He goes, Mom, I'm 7th man. 6th man, I'm not a leader. I said, son, you can lead from anywhere on the bench. You can lead from 11th man. And he kind of looked at me and I saw he got it for a minute and he's like, oh. Out the door. But you get my point? It doesn't matter where you are, lead. It makes no difference. You can control the environment. Now, you can get sucked into it and be a product of it. Have you heard that? Product of their environment. I mean, gosh, that's a cultural excuse for everything that's gone wrong in our country. Am I right? So what do you want to be? The product of it or the controller of it? Understand too, and this is what I love about this company. We're really working hard to create a good environment, and we drop all the time. We fail forward, and we fail forward, and we fail forward. Guess what? We get to do it together. Right? Because when we're all on the same page, what happens to the environment in our building? If we're all working on the same thing, how does it? Yeah, I mean, exactly. Explosive.
we all have choices of where we decide to hang our license and where we decide to go over with. But the only thing that keeps me here day